Hi everyone, welcome to Resume and Cover Letter Development for engineering students. Today we will talk about how to develop and build a strong and quality resume. You might need to create a resume for internships, on-campus jobs, full-time and part-time jobs, as well as scholarship and leadership opportunities. We will also discuss if your resume meets the boxes as it relates to career competencies regarding professionalism and communication. And we will learn how to create a cover letter to accompany your resume. First, let's talk about career competencies. So career competencies are the competencies in which employers really value in potential candidates. Competencies are transferable and valued in every industry. They are a person's knowledge and behaviors that lead them to be successful in a job or throughout purposeful work. Careers and work environments change continually, and individuals need to understand and be able to adapt to these changes. Using competencies in a career promotes overall well-being, the ability to adapt to change, as well as gives individuals a sense of purpose. Employers around the world highly value and look for candidates who have competencies they desire in their organization. So here are the 8 career competencies. The National Association of Colleges and Employers defines these career competencies as the skills that students will need in order to be successful and thrive in the workplace. So as students, you are strongly encouraged to seek out opportunities in which you are developing these competencies so that you can be best prepared when you enter the workforce. Today's focus on resumes and cover letters highlights the professionalism competency as well as the communication competency. So let's jump on into resumes. First, let's talk about the difference between a foundational resume versus a tailored resume. So a foundational resume can be any length and organized by any category. It's not something that's intended to be sent to employers. Any vocabulary can be used, and it is used as a launching pad to create tailored resumes. So a foundational resume is also known as a running resume, and it essentially encompasses all of your experiences and skill sets into one document. The idea is that you use this resume to build tailored resumes that you will ultimately send to employers. So a tailored resume is 1 to 2 pages in length. The categories match the job description, and it is sent to employers who match specific qualifications. Specific vocabulary is used, and it matches the job description terms. So ideally, when you are applying to different roles, you will comb through that job description and find keywords and buzzwords that match some of the skills and experiences you have, and you will use some of that verbiage in your resume. Quick question for you all. How long will an employer typically spend reviewing your resume? So 45 to 60 seconds, 1 to 2 minutes, 10 to 20 seconds, or as much time as needed to read the content. You said 10 to 20 seconds, you would be correct. And this is based off of surveys that we do send to employers pretty routinely to assess their thoughts and opinions on resumes. So they are skimming your resume and they are looking for key things that stands out that prompts them to read further. So it's really important that you take the overall impression of your resume seriously. So some things that would make a good resume impression would be things like consistency, well organization, easy to read, using the same font throughout, keeping things in a clear and concise manner. All things that are going to not only make the look of your resume appealing, but also will sound good. So we're going to break down each of these resume contents, but here's a sample for you all to review. Let's jump on in. So the first part of a resume, we're going to incorporate the heading or the contact section. So of course you're going to incorporate your name, and we do recommend making your name stand out, so it should be the largest thing on the page. You can include your address, but this is optional. At the very least, we do recommend city and state so that employers know where you're located. You are encouraged and recommended to incorporate your phone number as well as your email address. Eventually, your email does expire, so I would recommend, especially if you're post to graduation, incorporating an email address that you can easily access. If you have a LinkedIn profile or a website, I would recommend incorporating that URL onto your resume. The next thing that we're typically going to find on the resume is the education section. So of course you're going to incorporate your degree. So this is not a Bachelor of Engineering, but this is a Bachelor of Science in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, or whatever engineering discipline you are studying. If you're a master's student, then the same thing, Master of Science in. You are going to incorporate the date of graduation. So this is the expected month and year that you expect to graduate. And of course, you're going to incorporate the institution name. So this is where you can incorporate the formal name of the institution, so University of North Carolina at Charlotte, the location of the institution, so Charlotte, North Carolina. And a good rule of thumb when it comes to the resume is to incorporate city and state on all experiences. If you are minoring or have a concentration area or an emphasis, please also incorporate that. And then your GPA is optional, but we do recommend if it is above a 3.0 that you incorporate that onto the resume. Here is a sample section in which you can see how education might be formatted. Now, if you are transferring from another institution, if you earn the idea there is that if you earned a degree from that transfer institution, then absolutely incorporate it because it is an earned credential. However, if you started at another institution and just completed a few courses but did not complete a degree, then we would recommend leaving that off of the resume. And that's not to undermine the experiences that you had there, but more or less employers care about where you're earning your degree from, not necessarily where you started. So go ahead and pause this video and take 2 to 3 minutes to work on your heading and education section. Moving on to different sections of the resume. So this is where we might start incorporating experience. So this is likely the most important section of a resume because it's going to highlight the skills and experiences that you do have. So experience can come from work, internships, engineering or academic projects, volunteering, etc. You will include the organization and company name, the location, the job title or role you had, as well as the dates of experience. And you will incorporate bullet points. So this is a 1 to 2 line statement which describes a skill, responsibility, or experience related to a position. Should always begin with an action verb. So for each of your significant experiences, we do recommend 3 to 5 bullet points. For experiences where they're maybe not related to what you want to do long term, or maybe it's an experience that was through volunteering or campus involvement, 1 to 2 bullet points will suffice. So in order to help students think about how to create a pretty strong and robust bullet point, we have come up with this bullet point formula. So ideally, you would start that bullet point with that power verb. And on our career guide, we do have a whole page dedicated to a variety of power words and action verbs. So start with that, then incorporate what you did or who you served, and round out that bullet point by talking about the why or the results. So how did things turn out? How did you affect the bottom line? So an example of a strong bullet point might be attended to bar patrons while simultaneously communicating with servers to fill drink orders. So I really do encourage students to be thoughtful when they are creating their bullet points. I like to say that this is like the bread and butter of your resume. This is where you're really selling those skills and experiences that you have. So having strong and fleshed out bullet points is going to be key to having a really good quality resume. So here are some experience examples. So if any of you have completed any engineering internships, this might be an example of how you incorporate some of yours. And then another example here. Feel free to grab that QR code and access the career guide. In our career guide, there's lots of information on resumes. There's lots of resume samples. There's an engineering resume sample in there. So be sure to check that out. It's such a great resource when it comes to helping you build your resume. An integral part of the engineering resume is projects. So these are considered non-negotiables, and all engineering students should have a project section. So consider including a couple course projects as well as your senior design project. Now, if you are just getting started with your engineering degree, you may not have any engineering projects to incorporate just yet, but you will as you advance in your program. So just note that this is something that you will need to incorporate on your resume. So here are a couple examples of how you might incorporate your projects. So you can see that we're listing out what the role is, what the name of the project is, what course it was through, where you did this project, and then a few bullet points that describe what that project entailed. And again, just like with any other bullet point, be really thoughtful and specific when you are creating these. So go ahead and pause this video and take 5 minutes to work on your experience and/or project section. Moving on, other sections that you might incorporate into your resume would be honors and awards. So if you earned any scholarships or just have received any honors throughout your time here at UNC Charlotte, absolutely include those. If you've been involved on campus or have any community involvement, please incorporate that. That's all great experience, and it's things that we want to highlight. So here are some sample things that you might include. So Dean's List, Chancellor's List, student orgs, any professional associations you might be a part of, leadership roles and opportunities, and scholarships. If space allows, and if relevant, consider adding 1 to 2 bullet points that detail your involvement within the student org, association, or leadership position. This is not always necessary, especially if spacing is an issue. So what I mean by that is we do recommend that all undergraduate students keep their resume to 1 page. Graduate students and those with additional experience or non-traditional students may go on to a 2nd page, but we do recommend keeping it to that 1-page resume. And if you have significant project and internship experience, those are the things that we really want to highlight. And so it might mean that we don't incorporate bullet points for our campus involvement because we need the space to have the bullet points for the projects and the experiences we have. But if you have the space, absolutely feel free to incorporate a bullet point or 2 that highlights what your involvement in these organizations was or is. Additional sections we might see on a resume. So language skills. So if you have any language speaking or written abilities, please incorporate that. That is considered highly valued. You can indicate your level of proficiency. So if you feel like you're novice or intermediate or advanced, indicate that. With engineers, we do recommend having that technical skills section on the resume. So you will get exposure to a lot of these different programs through your coursework. So absolutely put that on the resume. That's another non-negotiable we want to see on the engineering resume. Relevant coursework can be useful if you want to highlight some of the theoretical framework you're building in your coursework. So if you want to list some of those high-level courses that you've taken, absolutely feel free to include that. Go ahead and pause this video and take 2 to 3 minutes to work on additional resume sections. So let's talk about the do's and don'ts of resume building. So be consistent. This means use the same font and style throughout the page. This is really important. This contributes to the overall look of your resume. And I often tell students that the look of your resume is just as important, if not more important, than what it says about you. You can utilize 10 to 12 size font, and 0.5 margins or 1/2 inch margins rather are recommended. So Word is going to default to that 1 inch margin. So feel free to reduce that. That's going to give you a little bit more space to work with. Make sure your resume is well organized and easy to read. The order is important. Put the most relevant information on the first page or near the top. So with an engineering resume, we would recommend starting with that education section and then go into skills and then projects and then engineering and non-engineering experiences. Utilize a power verb or action word at the beginning of each bullet point, and then of course follow that bullet point formula that we talked about. So some don'ts: do not include marital status, age, race, or other personal information. You don't want to give employers any reason to discriminate against you, and there are situations in which employers will not even consider resumes that have this information, so don't include anything personal there. Do not attach a photo. So this is also important. The only exception to this would be if you're a theater or dance major, so we do not need to incorporate photos onto the resume. Do not use personal pronouns, so I, we, my, you, etc. Do not falsify or embellish any of your experiences. There are situations in which employers will fact check a resume, so it's important not to falsify anything. Do not add any interests, the references available upon request tagline, or high school information. So as far as references go, when an employer is ready for references, they will ask for them. So go ahead and have a separate document with that information available. As far as high school goes, it's okay to have high school for now if you are a freshman or a sophomore, but by junior year, all high school information should fall off their resume. If you want to go ahead and remove it now, let's say you're a freshman and you want to go ahead and take that off, feel free, but it is okay to leave it until that junior year. So, like I said, the career guide has lots of resume help in there. We do have a resume checklist that you can review. So if you're going to apply to any positions on Hire9er, all resumes, or all first-time resumes rather, must go through an approval process. And so we take about 24 to 48 hours to look for basic resume elements on your resume. And we will approve or not approve based off of the resume checklist. So this is just looking for that basic criteria. We're making sure your major's on there, your school's on there. If for some reason your resume is not approved, we will let you know, and we will let you know what you're missing or what you might need to change. Once you have an approved resume, you never have to go through the approval process again, and any other documents that you upload will automatically be approved. All right, so that is it for resumes. So feel free to go back and, rewatch some aspects of this video if you need to, use that career guide. And then, of course, if you need any assistance with your resume, the Career Center is here to help you. We have career coaches available to meet with you, to look over your resume, to give you feedback. But then we also offer drop-in hours, which are Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., where you can come in and have your resume reviewed both in person or virtually. And we will definitely sit down with you and give you some feedback and make sure everything looks pretty good there. All right, so let's move through cover letters. Now, cover letters is going to go a little bit quicker because it is so subjective, but let's go ahead and talk about some tips and things to think about when it comes to cover letters. So the purpose of them is to inform prospective employers on what you can do, why you're interested, and why you are qualified. It is to convey your enthusiasm and interest for a specific role and company. It is also to expand upon the skills and experiences listed in your resume. And then your resume talks about what you have done, whereas your cover letter conveys why you did something. So here's a sample cover letter. We do have cover letter information in that career guide that I've talked about. And then, of course, you can also have your cover letter reviewed by us here in the Career Center. But let's talk about formatting. So this is what a typical cover letter might look like. You do want to format it like a traditional business letter. So let's break down each of these sections. So the heading should be identical to what's on your resume. So go ahead and copy and paste that resume header and put it on your cover letter document. That just allows all of your application materials to look the same. Then you're going to move into some formatting components. So do incorporate the date of the letter that you are applying. So the date that you're applying, put that on the letter. And then incorporate the employer's contact information. So if you know who's hiring, then absolutely address it and personalize it to that individual. A personalized cover letter is better than not. But we don't always have the luxury of knowing that information. So if you are not able to determine who the hiring manager might be, then you can just address it to hiring manager, and that will suffice. But do put their address and location on the cover letter. Moving into that first intro paragraph. So this should indicate a brief introduction to who you are, why you are writing, of course, incorporate the specific position you're applying to, how you learned about the role, and why you're interested. This should just be brief, 1 to 2, maybe 3 sentences at the most, just a brief introduction to your cover letter. Moving on to the body paragraph or paragraphs. This is the meat of the cover letter. This is the bread and butter, if you will. So this is where you really go into detail and talk about your experiences and qualifications. So this should be 2 to 3 paragraphs with relevant information and examples. You should ask yourself how your qualifications match the needs of the employer and discuss it. Be confident and show interest. Forgive me. In closing, restate your interest in the position in the company, summarize your qualifications, list your contact information and interest in an interview, and thank the employer for reviewing your application. Your salutation should be kept professional, should incorporate your name in script if you'd like, but you can also type your name. Some do's and don'ts. Do keep the cover letter to 1 page. Tailor every cover letter to the job description. We do not recommend submitting general cover letters to an employer. Address the cover letter to someone specific if possible. And this might mean you can call up the company and ask who's hiring for this role. The worst they can say is they can't provide that information to you, but it's absolutely okay to do that. Be confident and do not mention any deficits in your experiences or skill sets, and tell the most applicable stories about experiences which will relate to the job itself. All right, I hope this session was helpful for you. Again, please let us know how we can support you with your resume and cover letter development. We are located next to the library. And again, drop-ins are Monday through Friday, 10 to 3. Hope you all take care, and we hope to see you in the Career Center very soon.